I never thought a simple home repair would destroy my family. 3 weeks ago, my security camera broke during a storm. Yesterday morning, the technician fixed it while my son David was at work. I forgot to mention it at dinner. That single oversight revealed something so twisted about my son and his wife Sarah that within 10 minutes of discovering their secret, I was calling my lawyer while my hands shook uncontrollably. Sometimes the truth hides behind the smallest oversights. My name is Grace Thompson, and at 68 years old, I thought I had life figured out. After 40 years of building Thompson Construction from a pickup truck and a toolbox into one of Columbus, Ohio's most respected companies, I'd earned my quiet retirement. The two-story colonial on Maple Street had been home since 1984, when Margaret and I bought it with every penny we'd saved. Margaret. Even 3 years after losing her to pancreatic cancer, I still catch myself setting out 2 coffee cups in the morning. 45 years of marriage creates habits that outlive the person who inspired them. The house felt empty, without her laugh filling the kitchen, without her garden gloves perpetually abandoned on the counter, without her gentle scolding about tracking mud through her clean floors. That emptiness changed when David and Sarah moved in. My son had always been the center of our world, our only child after years of trying. Watching him grow from a gap-toothed little boy into a successful financial advisor at Preston Wealth Management filled me with pride Margaret and I never tired of expressing. When he showed up at my door 2 years ago with Sarah explaining they wanted to help me through my grief, I thought God had blessed me with more than I deserved. "Dad, you shouldn't be alone in this big house." David had said, his brown eyes full of concern. Sarah had stood beside him, her hand gentle on his arm, nodding with such genuine warmth. "We've talked about it, and we want to move into the basement apartment. That way, you have your privacy, but we're here if you need anything." The basement apartment had been my project the year before Margaret got sick. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, separate entrance, 1,500 square feet of comfortable living space. I'd imagined renting it to a young couple, maybe graduate students from Ohio State. Instead, it became perfect for keeping family close while maintaining independence. Sarah transformed our lives immediately. Every morning at 7 sharp, she'd appear in my kitchen with fresh baked muffins or scrambled eggs, insisting I needed proper nutrition. "Grace, you can't live on coffee and memories," she'd say, setting down plates while I protested I could feed myself. She had this way of making caring seem effortless, natural as breathing. Evenings became family time again. We'd gather for dinner, David sharing stories from his day at the firm, Sarah describing her work at the pediatric clinic, where she served as an administrator. They'd ask about my woodworking projects, admire whatever birdhouse or jewelry box emerged from my garage workshop. Sarah even convinced me to teach her basic carpentry, claiming she'd always wanted to learn. "You're lucky," my poker buddy Robert would say during our Thursday night games. "My kids call once a month if I'm fortunate. Yours moved in to take care of you." Robert wasn't wrong. At the Sunrise Diner, where we met for lunch twice a week, I'd listen to other retirees complain about distant children, ungrateful grandkids, families scattered across the country. Meanwhile, my son checked on me daily. His wife cooked my favorite pot roast every Sunday, and they included me in everything from grocery runs to movie nights. The security system had been Margaret's idea originally. After the Andersons got robbed in broad daylight 5 years ago, she'd insisted on cameras. "Better safe than sorry," she'd said, supervising while I installed them around the property. The system was good quality, with clear audio and night vision. The main camera covered the side entrance David and Sarah used, angled to catch anyone approaching their door. That camera had weathered dozens of storms without issue until 3 weeks ago. The thunderstorm that Thursday night was fierce even by Ohio standards. Lightning struck the oak tree in the Jeffersons' yard, winds topped 60 miles per hour, and rain fell in sheets. When I checked the monitors Friday morning, the side camera showed nothing but static. "Fast Fix Security, how can I help you?" The dispatcher sounded harried when I called. "Camera's out from the storm. Need someone to look at it." Sir, half the city's calling. We're booking 2 weeks out minimum. 2 weeks. I figured David and Sarah wouldn't mind. They had nothing to hide. I marked my calendar and settled in to wait, filling my days with routine. Morning coffee on the porch, watching cardinals at the feeder. 9 o'clock to the workshop, losing myself in the smell of sawdust and satisfaction of creating something solid. Lunch with Robert at the diner, our usual booth by the window. Afternoons in Margaret's garden, though I'd let it go somewhat since she passed. This spring, I decided to change that. Margaret deserved better than overgrown roses and weedy flower beds. I started planning a memorial garden, something special, where I could sit and feel close to her. David encouraged the project, even helped me sketch designs one evening while Sarah made hot chocolate. Mom would love this, he'd said, pointing to where I'd planned a small fountain. Remember how she always wanted a water feature? I'd gotten misty-eyed at the memory, and Sarah had squeezed my shoulder. She was an amazing woman, Grace. This garden will be a beautiful tribute. 3 weeks passed in comfortable routine. David got promoted to senior advisor, bringing home champagne to celebrate. Sarah started training for a half-marathon, jogging past my window each morning with a wave. I made progress on the garden, ordering special stones, selecting Margaret's favorite perennials, building benches in my workshop. Then, yesterday morning, everything changed. I was enjoying my first cup of coffee watching the news when the doorbell rang at 7:45. Through the peephole, I saw a Fast Fix uniform. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Marcus. Had a cancellation, thought I'd swing by early for your camera repair. Wasn't expecting you for another few days," I said, opening the door. Marcus was young, maybe 25, with an eager smile. "Lucky break. Storm damage has us slammed, but the 8 o'clock rescheduled. Should be quick if it's just weather-related." I led him around the house to the side camera, then returned to my coffee while he worked. True to his word, 20 minutes later, he knocked on my back door. "All set, Mr. Thompson. Loose connection from the wind, easy fix. The system's backing up stored footage now. Should sync to your monitors within an hour." I thanked him, paid the service fee, and promptly forgot about it. My mind was on the memorial garden. The landscape supplier had called about a delivery delay, and I spent the morning on the phone sorting out alternatives. By lunch, camera repairs were the furthest thing from my mind. When David and Sarah came home that evening, we had our usual pleasant dinner. Sarah made her famous lasagna. David opened a nice bottle of wine, and we talked about his promotion, their weekend plans, my progress on the garden. Normal family conversation. Comfortable. Safe. If I'd remembered to mention the camera, would they have acted differently? Would Sarah have continued her morning ritual of bringing me vitamins? Would David have maintained his concerned son routine? Would I have gone on believing I was the luckiest father in Columbus? I'll never know. Because I forgot to tell them the camera was working again, and that simple oversight revealed a truth so horrifying that my perfect family turned to ashes in exactly 10 minutes of footage. Sometimes ignorance isn't bliss. Sometimes it's just delayed devastation, waiting for the smallest accident to bring reality crashing down. The next morning started like any other. Sarah brought breakfast at 7, her usual cheerful energy filling my kitchen as she set down homemade blueberry pancakes and my daily vitamin supplements. "Grace, you're looking tired. Did you sleep okay?" She studied me with those attentive hazel eyes while pushing the pill organizer closer. "Fine, just thinking about Margaret's garden. Can't decide between white roses or pink." "Why not both?" She watched me take the vitamins, satisfied when I washed them down with orange juice. "Your mother loved variety. I've got clinic meetings all morning, but David will be home for lunch if you need anything." After she left, I settled into my study to organize photos for the memorial garden display. Boxes of pictures covered my desk, decades of memories waiting to be sorted. Margaret at our wedding, radiant in her grandmother's dress. David's first steps, his college graduation, his promotion celebration last month. A lifetime captured in fading photographs. At 10:07, my computer chimed. A notification popped up from the security system. Backup complete. 30 days of stored footage now available. Curious, I minimized the photo software and opened the security dashboard. The system had indeed saved everything before the camera failed. I clicked on the side entrance feed, thinking I might see that massive thunderstorm that caused the damage. Fast-forwarding through rain and darkness, I noticed the timestamp 3 weeks of static. Then yesterday's date appeared. Marcus, the technician working on the camera. Me, forgetting to mention it at dinner. Nothing interesting. I almost closed the program when movement caught my eye. Yesterday, 2:47 p.m. While I'd been arguing with suppliers about granite delivery, David and Sarah's figures appeared on screen. They entered through their private door, but instead of going downstairs, they stopped in the covered entryway. Their voices came through crystal clear. I checked his bank statements while he was napping yesterday. The old fool has more than we thought. My blood turned to ice. Sarah's voice, usually so sweet, dripped with contempt. On screen, David loosened his tie, glancing around before responding. Good. Mom's life insurance plus his construction business sale. We're looking at about $4 million. Maybe more if the investment's recovered. How much longer do we have to play happy family? David checked his watch. The doctor said his heart medication mixed with those supplements you've been adding should start showing effects within 6 months. Natural cardiac decline completely untraceable. We stick to the plan. My hand trembled on the mouse. Those vitamins Sarah lovingly brought each morning. The fatigue I'd attributed to age. The occasional chest discomfort I'd ignored. On screen, David pulled documents from his briefcase. The camera angle was perfect. I could see everything as he spread papers on the entryway bench. Power of attorney forms with my signature, except I'd never signed them. Property transfer deeds. Medical directives stating I wanted no interventions. These look perfect, Sarah said, examining the forgeries. Your handwriting practice paid off. She produced a small notebook, flipping through pages. I've been documenting his symptoms for months. Confusion about dates, forgetting names, stumbling. Dr. Harrison already thinks he's showing signs of dementia, based on my concerned reports. You haven't been taking him to Harrison, have you? Of course not. Just phone calls. Poor Grace doesn't even know I've been discussing his decline with his doctor. They both laughed. The sound made bile rise in my throat. The memorial garden is perfect timing, David continued. Once it's done, we'll have the service there. Poetic, really. The grieving son, the devoted daughter-in-law, overwhelmed by losing him so soon after Mom. No one will question anything. Costa Rica's looking better every day. Sarah sighed. I'm tired of pretending to care about his stupid woodworking stories. 6 months, baby. Maybe less if you increase the dosage. Then we sell this place, liquidate everything, and disappear. The client funds I've been moving offshore are already earning interest. Client funds. My son wasn't just poisoning me. He was stealing from the people who trusted him with their futures. The timestamp showed 10 minutes of footage. 10 minutes that shattered every belief I'd held about my family. They discussed more details, which accounts to drain first, how to handle my friend's concerns. Sarah's research into compounds that mimic heart failure. Professional criminals planning my murder while I sat 20 feet away oblivious. When they finally went downstairs, I remained frozen, staring at the screen. My chest did hurt now, but from shock, not Sarah's poison. The woman I'd welcomed as a daughter wanted me dead. The son I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for, was counting my millions while plotting my funeral. I forced myself to review more footage. Every day showed similar conversations. David practicing my signature. Sarah grinding extra pills into powder. Discussions about my deteriorating condition. Their Costa Rica property searches, jokes about my trusting nature. 3 days ago, Sarah had told David she found my will in the filing cabinet. Everything goes to charity if you die first. We need to fix that. Already handled, David assured her. New will's in my safe. He leaves it all to me with you as backup beneficiary. My actual will was in my lawyer's safe. They'd found an old draft Margaret and I discarded years ago. The final footage from yesterday made everything clear. After returning from lunch, they'd stood in the same spot, Sarah frustrated. "He's too healthy. At this rate, we'll be stuck here another year." "Patience," David soothed. "We increase gradually. Too fast raises suspicions. Or we create an accident. He's always on those ladders in the workshop." "No, stick to the plan. Natural causes or nothing." They went inside, and I finally broke from my trance. My hands shook so violently, I could barely grab my phone. But calling 911 meant explaining everything to strangers, meant David would lawyer up, immediately, meant possibly losing my chance for real justice. Instead, I called Michael Chen, my attorney for 20 years. "Michael, it's Grace Thompson. I need to see you immediately. Bring your criminal law partner." "Grace, what's wrong?" "I can't explain over the phone. Can you come to my house parked down the street? Come through the back." "I'll be there in 30 minutes. I made copies of the footage onto 3 USB drives, uploaded everything to a cloud server I created for construction projects, then emailed Michael with the subject line, "Emergency, open immediately." 25 minutes later, Michael knocked softly on my back door. He'd brought Janet Williams, the former prosecutor who'd joined his firm. "Grace, what's this about?" Michael's usual calm was shaken after seeing my email. I showed them the footage. Janet took notes while Michael's face went from skepticism to horror. When it finished, both sat in stunned silence. "We need police," Janet said finally. "Not yet. They'll arrest them. But what if Sarah makes bail? What if David hides the money I need to be smart about this?" Michael understood. "You want them buried, legally buried." "They're poisoning me while planning vacations on my money." "Yes, I want them destroyed." Janet pulled out her phone. "Thomas Brennan, former FBI best private investigator in the state. We'll need documentation evidence, a case so airtight they'll never see freedom again." While she made calls, I noticed my hands had stopped shaking. The shock was morphing into something colder, more focused. They thought I was a foolish old man too trusting to see their deception. They were about to learn that underestimating Grace Thompson was their biggest mistake. "Dad, you home?" David's voice called from downstairs. I checked the time. 12:30, his lunch break. Michael and Janet quickly gathered their things, slipping out the back as David's footsteps climbed the stairs. In the study, I called closing the security program. David appeared in the doorway, concerned and caring as always. "Just checking on you. Sarah said you looked tired this morning." "I'm fine, son." The word son tasted like acid now. "Just sorting photos for your mother's garden." He smiled, that same smile from childhood, when he'd broken something and hoped I wouldn't notice. How had I missed the calculation behind it? "That's great, Dad. Hey, I was thinking we should review your finances soon. Make sure everything's organized, you know." "Sure, whatever you think is best." His eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The old fool was cooperating perfectly. After he left, I sat among scattered photographs, Margaret's smiling face looking up from our anniversary cruise. "I'm sorry, honey," I whispered. "I missed what our boy became. But I promise you, I'll make this right." The vitamins Sarah brought sat untouched on my desk. Tomorrow, I'd pretend to take them like always. Tomorrow I'd stumble a little more, forget a few names, play the part they'd written for me. Tomorrow, I'd begin destroying the 2 people I'd trusted most in the world. That afternoon, I drove across Columbus to St. Catherine's Medical Center, where my old friend, Dr. James Peterson, ran the internal medicine department. I'd specifically chosen him because David and Sarah didn't know about our friendship. We'd met through Margaret's cancer treatment, bonding over fishing, while our wives compared chemo stories. "Grace, what brings you here?" "Everything okay?" James greeted me in his private office, away from curious eyes. "I need blood work, comprehensive screening, and I need it kept absolutely confidential." His brow furrowed. "What's going on?" I showed him the vitamin bottle Sarah gave me daily. "I think someone's poisoning me. I need to know what's in my system." "Jesus, Grace, we should call the police." "After the blood work. I need proof first." 2 hours later, James called me back into his office, his face grave. You have elevated levels of digoxin in your system. It's a heart medication, but you're not prescribed it. These levels, Grace sustained exposure would cause exactly what looks like natural heart failure. How long? At current levels, 6 months to a year before serious damage. But if the dose increases, document everything, every detail. And Jim, this stays between us for now. I left with copies of the results, my truck's destination already planned. First National Bank's downtown branch held most of my accounts. Jennifer Martinez had been my banker for 20 years, helping me grow Thompson Construction from small business to empire. Grace, good to see you. She welcomed me into her corner office. What can I do for you? Need to restructure some investments. Markets got me nervous. She pulled up my accounts on her screen. Everything looks solid. Your financial advisor has been doing excellent work. My financial advisor. David had inserted himself into every aspect of my finances over the past year, claiming he wanted to help maximize my retirement. I'd been grateful for his expertise. I want to move $3 million to new accounts, ones that require only my signature, no power of attorney access. Jennifer paused. That's a significant change. Is everything all right? Just being cautious. Also, I need transaction records for the past 2 years. Every movement, every access. While she processed the transfers, I studied the records. Small amounts had been disappearing, transferred to accounts I didn't recognize. Nothing dramatic enough to notice on monthly statements, but over 2 years, nearly $200,000 had vanished. Jennifer, can you trace where these transfers went? She examined the data, frowning deeper with each discovery. These went to offshore accounts. Grace, this looks like embezzlement. Can you document everything and set up alerts so I know immediately if anyone tries to access my remaining accounts? Of course. Should I report this to the authorities? I'm handling it. Just secure everything for now. My next stop was a nondescript office building in the Short North District. Thomas Brennan's private investigation firm occupied the 3rd floor, his reputation preceding him through legal circles. Michael had called ahead, so Thomas expected me. Mr. Thompson Michael filled me in on the basics. This footage, he shook his head after viewing it. In 30 years of FBI work, family cases were always the worst. I need everything on David and Sarah. Financial records, backgrounds, any criminal history. Consider it done. Fair warning, this kind of deep dive isn't cheap. Money's no object. They're trying to kill me for it. I might as well use it to bury them. Thomas worked fast. Within 48 hours, he'd uncovered Sarah's true identity. Sandra Marie Fletcher from Detroit, wanted for elderly fraud in Arizona, Nevada, and Florida. Her first husband, Harold Brenneman, died of heart failure in Phoenix 3 years ago. Suspicious, but unprovable. Her second target, William Nash in Reno, survived when his daughter noticed his symptoms. She's been running this con for at least 7 years, Thomas explained in our clandestine meeting at a coffee shop. Changes her appearance, creates new identities, targets widowers with money. Your son found her on a dating site specifically for financial professionals. They met online. EliteMatchFinance.com. She was hunting for someone with access to wealthy clients. David took the bait, but based on these messages I recovered, he was already stealing before meeting her. They're both predators who found each other. The evidence mounted. David had been siphoning client funds for 3 years, starting small, growing bolder. He'd stolen nearly $2 million total, moving it through shell companies to offshore accounts. His promotion to senior advisor gave him access to bigger fish. He's been building a paper trail suggesting you authorize these transfers, Thomas continued, using his forged power of attorney, making it look like dementia-driven decisions if anyone investigates. Playing my role became a daily torture. Each morning, Sarah arrived with breakfast and poison. I'd perfected the art of pretending to swallow pills while tucking them under my tongue, spitting them out after she left. The vitamins went into evidence bags Thomas provided, each dated and documented. I started stumbling more frequently, mixing up names, occasionally showing confusion about dates. Nothing dramatic, just enough to feed their narrative. The hidden cameras Thomas installed throughout my house caught their delighted reactions. "He called me Jennifer yesterday," Sarah told David one evening. "Thought I was his banker." "Perfect. Keep documenting everything. I'll mention it to Dr. Harrison during my next update call." They were building my incompetency case while I built their destruction. Every conversation, every poisoned pill, every forged document added to the mountain of evidence. Janet Williams, the prosecutor, assured me we had enough for attempted murder charges. But I wanted more. I wanted them obliterated. The hardest moments came at night. Lying in bed, I'd remember teaching David to ride a bike, his face bright with triumph when he finally balanced alone. Margaret's voice echoed, "Our boy's special Grace. He'll do great things." She was half right. He was doing things, just not great ones. Robert noticed my deterioration during our Thursday poker games. "You feeling all right, Grace? Seem off lately." "Just tired. Getting old, I guess." "Bullshit. You're healthier than men half our age. Something's wrong." I wanted to tell him everything, but secrecy was crucial. Instead, I let him worry, knowing the truth would emerge soon enough. 2 weeks into my investigation, Thomas discovered something that made my blood freeze. Sarah's notebook wasn't just documenting fake symptoms. She was researching faster methods. "She's getting impatient." Thomas showed me photos from her desk. Library books on toxic plants, websites about accidental overdoses, insurance policies. Insurance. "David took out a $3 million policy on you 6 months ago. Forged your signature, of course. Sarah's the beneficiary if he predeceases you." The memorial garden became my sanctuary and secret weapon. Working the soil, I'd hidden small cameras among the landscaping. The time capsule I told neighbors about actually contained USB drives with evidence sealed in waterproof containers. If something happened to me before we could act, the truth would literally be unearthed. David encouraged the garden project, seeing perfect irony in my building my own memorial. He'd even helped design the dedication ceremony, suggesting we invite everyone who'd known Margaret. "Make it big, Dad. Mom deserves a real celebration. Maybe Memorial Day weekend." Memorial Day, 6 weeks away. Their timeline was accelerating. I met with Janet and assembled what she called a prosecution dream team. The FBI joined after learning about David's client theft. The state's Elder Abuse Task Force opened a case. Every agency wanted pieces of David and Sarah, but coordination was key. "We need them to act," Janet explained. "Attempted murder is strong, but if they escalate, make a definitive move, it's life without parole." "You want to use me as bait?" "Only if you're comfortable. We'll have agents everywhere, full surveillance medical team standing by." Comfortable. Nothing about discovering your son wants you dead was comfortable. But I'd spent 40 years in construction, building solid foundations. Now I'd build their prison cells with the same attention to detail. "Do it. Let's give them enough rope to hang themselves." The trap was set. Financial documents were left strategically visible. I mentioned feeling weaker to neighbors, knowing gossip would reach Sarah. The memorial garden deadline approached, pressure mounting on my would-be killers. One evening, while Sarah prepared dinner, I, accidentally, knocked over my pill organizer. As she knelt to collect the scattered medication, I saw her palm several extra pills. That night's dose would have been triple strength. I took the pills, then excused myself to the bathroom where I promptly deposited them into another evidence file. My hands shook, not from poison, but from rage. How dare she kneel in my kitchen cooking with Margaret's pots, while calculating my murder? "Dad seems worse," David mentioned casually as they cleaned up. The hidden camera caught Sarah's satisfied smile. "The supplements are working. Maybe we should consider assisted living soon, for his own safety, of course." "Let's wait until after the memorial dedication. Wouldn't want to upset him before Mom's big day." They planned to institutionalize me after the ceremony, probably escalating the poisoning once I was isolated from friends. The dedication they saw as cover for my decline would instead become their downfall. That night, I sat in Margaret's garden, under the stars. "I'm sorry, honey. Sorry I raised a monster. Sorry I didn't see what he'd become." The wind rustled through newly planted roses, almost like her voice whispering back. Tomorrow, I'd stumble worse. Tomorrow, Sarah would document more symptoms. Tomorrow, my son would practice forging more signatures. But soon, very soon, the silent wolf would show his teeth. And when I did, they'd learn that attempting to murder Grace Thompson was the last mistake they'd ever make. The prosecutor's office felt like a war room. Janet Williams had assembled a task force that would make any criminal nervous. FBI Special Agent Marcus Webb, for the financial crimes Detective Linda Morrison, from Elder Abuse Division Assistant U.S. Attorney Robert Chen for federal charges, and Thomas Brennan coordinating evidence. "Gentlemen, lady," Janet addressed the group, "we have a unique opportunity. The Thompson case gives us a chance to take down not just attempted murderers, but expose a multi-state fraud ring and embezzlement scheme." Agent Webb pulled up financial records on the screen. David Thompson has stolen $1.9 million from 17 clients over 3 years. The money's been routed through 6 shell companies to accounts in Costa Rica and the Cayman Islands. "And Sarah?" Detective Morrison asked. "Sandra Fletcher has left a trail of bodies and broken seniors across 4 states, Thomas reported. 2 confirmed deaths, 1 survivor who was too traumatized to testify. She's escalated from simple fraud to murder." I sat quietly absorbing the magnitude of what my son had become. Not just a killer, but a serial thief who destroyed retirements and futures. "Mr. Thompson," Agent Webb addressed me, "we need your help to ensure they can't escape justice. Are you willing to wear recording devices?" "I'll wear whatever you need." "There's risk," Detective Morrison warned. "Sarah's getting impatient based on our surveillance. She might escalate beyond pills." "Then we'd better move fast." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would appear increasingly vulnerable, mentioning confusion about finances to David, asking him to help access accounts. Meanwhile, Jennifer at the bank would alert us to any attempts. We'd document every forgery, every illegal access building an ironclad case. The memorial dedication is May 25th. I told them, "David's pushing for a big ceremony. I think they're planning something for that day." Janet smiled grimly. "Then we'll make sure they get their big ceremony. Just not the one they expect." Back home, I perfected my performance. When Sarah brought breakfast, I'd fumble with utensils, occasionally calling her Margaret. The cameras caught her exchanging gleeful looks with David, documenting every stage symptom in her notebook. "Grace, sweetie, I'm Sarah. Remember your daughter-in-law." Her fake concern made my skin crawl. "Of course, sorry, dear. Just tired." Robert, my loyal friend, became unwittingly helpful. His genuine worry sold my decline better than any acting. "Damn it, Grace, you need to see a doctor," he insisted during lunch at the diner. "Sarah says I'm fine, just getting older." "Sarah's not a doctor. Something's wrong, and if you won't get help, I'll drag you myself." I let him see my hands shake, while reaching for coffee, missed my mouth slightly with the cup. His alarm was real when he reported back to neighbors, creating the community concern David and Sarah needed for their narrative. Meanwhile, Thomas's investigation revealed more disturbing details. Sarah had researched specific combinations of digoxin with other medications that would cause rapid deterioration. She'd visited libraries across Columbus, never checking out books, but photographing pages about untraceable poisons. "She's building to something," Thomas warned during one of our secret meetings. "Based on her pattern with previous victims, she gets sloppy when impatient." David, for his part, was busy creating documentation for my supposed incompetence. The FBI intercepted communications, showing he'd scheduled meetings with 3 different elder care facilities, all coincidentally far from Columbus, where my friends couldn't visit easily. The financial trap began when I mentioned to David over dinner that Jennifer had called about dormant accounts. Something about old CDs maturing. $500,000 I'd forgotten about. She needs signatures to reinvest. David's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. I can handle that for you, Dad. No need to trouble yourself with complicated paperwork. Would you? My eyes aren't what they used to be. Of course. Family takes care of family. Sarah squeezed his hand under the table, their shared greed palpable. The account was funded by the FBI as bait. Any attempt to access it would trigger immediate alerts and provide concrete evidence of financial exploitation. 2 days later, David arrived at the bank with forged documents. Jennifer, playing her role, perfectly expressed concern about the signatures. This doesn't quite match our records, Mr. Thompson. Perhaps your father should come in personally. He's not well, David insisted, producing a medical letter from Dr. Harrison, stating I was showing signs of dementia. As his power of attorney, I'm authorized to handle his affairs. Of course. Let me just verify this with our legal department. She stalled long enough for the FBI to document everything, then reluctantly processed the transaction. David left, believing he'd successfully stolen another $500,000. In reality, he'd signed his own arrest warrant. The memorial garden neared completion. I'd worked tirelessly creating something Margaret would have loved. Curved pathways led to a central fountain surrounded by her favorite flowers: pink roses, white peonies, purple irises. Stone benches offered peaceful resting spots, and I'd commissioned a small plaque with her favorite quote, "Love grows best in gardens." It's beautiful, Dad, David said during an evening visit. Mom would be so proud. Think we could have the dedication Memorial Day weekend invite everyone who loved her? That's perfect. I'll help you plan everything. His enthusiasm wasn't for Margaret's memory, but for the cover story our gathering would provide. A confused old man overwhelmed by grief at his wife's memorial suffering a medical emergency requiring immediate institutionalization. They'd probably increase the poison dose that morning, ensuring I'd collapse publicly. Sarah ordered catering, insisting on handling everything. You just focus on your speech, Grace. Let us manage the details. She'd already called Dr. Harrison twice, planting seeds about my concerning behavior at the dedication. Thomas's surveillance caught them discussing specifics in their apartment. If he collapses during the speech, perfect, Sarah said. Overwhelming grief, pre-existing heart condition, everyone witnesses his deterioration. The ambulance takes him straight to Riverside Senior Care, David added. I've already filed commitment papers. Once he's there, we increase the medication. 2 weeks maximum. Then Costa Rica. Then paradise, baby. They toasted with wine I'd probably paid for celebrating my planned demise. The camera angle caught Sarah pulling out a small vial, adding drops to a bottle of orange juice. For the morning of. This plus his regular dose should do it. Not too much, David warned. Has to look natural. Trust me, I've done this before. They kissed, and I forced myself to keep watching. This wasn't my son anymore. This was a stranger wearing David's face corrupted beyond recognition. The FBI decided we had enough evidence, but wanted them to make an attempt at the dedication. Public witnesses, clear intent, no room for legal maneuvering. We'll have agents throughout the crowd, Agent Webb assured me. Medical team on standby, everything monitored. The second they make their move, we close in. I spent the week before the dedication finalizing details. The time capsule with evidence was buried beneath Margaret's favorite rosebush. I updated my will through Michael, ensuring David and Sarah received nothing, even if something went wrong. The memorial garden would become a public space maintained by the city, where Margaret's memory could bring joy to others. 3 days before the ceremony, Sarah's impatience peaked. She arrived for breakfast, carrying a larger bottle of pills. Dr. Harrison adjusted your prescription, Grace. These should help with your fatigue. I examined the bottle, recognizing pills Thomas had identified as concentrated digoxin. 1 dose would cause severe symptoms. 3 would kill. Whatever you think is best, dear. She watched me take them satisfied when I finished the juice. I'd gotten expert at holding liquids in my mouth without swallowing, but the effort was exhausting. How much longer could I maintain this charade? That evening, I accidentally left my study door open while reviewing bank statements. David practically sprinted inside when he noticed. "Dad, you shouldn't stress about finances. Let me help." "Would you? I can't make sense of these numbers anymore." He gathered the statements eagerly. "I'll handle everything. That's what family's for." Family. The word had become poison itself, corrupted by their greed. I thought of Margaret, how horrified she'd be at David's transformation. Or had there been signs we'd missed, too blinded by parental love to see? The night before the dedication, I couldn't sleep. Tomorrow, everything would culminate. Either they'd be exposed and arrested, or something would go wrong, and I'd end up another victim in Sarah's trail of bodies. I walked through the memorial garden in moonlight, touching each plant Margaret would have loved. Whatever happened tomorrow, at least, I'd created something beautiful in her honor. The fountain whispered peacefully, and I could almost hear her voice. "Be careful, Grace, but make them pay." "I will, honey, for both of us." Tomorrow the trap would spring. Tomorrow David and Sarah would learn that underestimating an old construction worker was the foundation of their destruction. Tomorrow, the silent wolf would finally howl. Memorial Day weekend arrived with perfect Ohio weather. 72 degrees, cloudless sky, gentle breeze carrying the scent of blooming flowers through Margaret's completed garden. I stood at my bedroom window, watching the catering team Sarah had hired arrange tables across the lawn. She knocked at 7 sharp carrying breakfast and her poisoner's smile. "Big day, Grace. How are you feeling?" "Nervous. Haven't given a speech since retirement." "You'll be wonderful." She set down orange juice and toast, then produced the pill bottle. "Better take extra vitamins today. Keep your strength up." I noticed the juice looked cloudier than usual, remembering the vial she'd added drops to on camera. This was it, their killing dose. I took the pills, drank deeply, then excused myself to the bathroom where FBI agents had installed a medical kit. The activated charcoal tablets would neutralize most toxins while preserving evidence in my system. By 10 o'clock, guests began arriving. Former employees from Thompson Construction, their families who'd grown up attending company barbecues. Neighbors who'd watched David learn to ride his bike on this very street. Margaret's book club, her church choir, relatives from 3 states. Over 70 people gathered to honor a woman whose son now plotted over her grave. Agent Webb posed as a photographer, Detective Morrison mingled as my cousin from Michigan, and Thomas circulated with a camera supposedly documenting the event. Medical personnel waited in an unmarked van, disguised as catering backup. David worked the crowd, playing the devoted son to perfection. "Dad's been so focused on this garden. It's helped with his grief, though I worry he's overdoing it." Sarah, elegant in black dress and crocodile tears, touched guests' arms with practiced sympathy. "We're just grateful you're here. Grace needs support, especially with his recent confusion." I felt the poison working my heart rhythm, becoming irregular. Not dangerously yet, but enough to show symptoms they'd expect. When Robert approached, I let my hand tremble slightly while shaking his. "Beautiful job on the garden, Grace. Margaret would have loved it." "She's here," I said, letting my voice waver. "Can't you see her by the roses?" His concern was genuine. "Grace, you feeling all right?" "Just emotional, excuse me." I moved through the crowd, greeting everyone, while displaying subtle signs of distress. Stumbling slightly here, forgetting a name there. Sarah shadowed me, documenting everything in her mental notebook for Dr. Harrison. At 11:30, David called everyone to gather near the fountain. The centerpiece of Margaret's garden sparkled in sunlight, surrounded by the flowers she'd loved. I'd placed her photo on a small easel, her smile warming the space, even in absence. "Thank you all for coming." David began, his voice perfectly calibrated between strength and grief. "My mother touched so many lives, and seeing you here proves how much she meant to this community." He spoke beautifully about Margaret's stories I'd told him now, weaponized for sympathy. Sarah dabbed at dry eyes while checking her watch. They expected me to collapse during my speech, providing maximum witnesses to my deterioration. When David finished, he gestured me forward. Dad's prepared some words about Mom. Please be patient with him. He's been under tremendous strain. I approached the microphone slowly, letting them see an old man struggling with emotion and illness. The crowd fell silent, respectful, and anticipatory. Several held tissues, ready for tears. Margaret Rose Thompson. I began, my voice shaky. My wife of 45 years, mother to David, friend to all of you. I paused, swaying slightly. David stepped closer, ready to catch me when I fell. Sarah pulled out her phone, probably preparing to call their predetermined ambulance service. She would have loved this garden. These roses. I gestured vaguely, letting my hand drift. She planted love everywhere she went. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. I could see FBI agents positioned strategically, ready to move. Time for the performance of my lifetime. But Margaret wouldn't want us crying today. My voice grew stronger. She'd want truth. She'd want justice. She'd want everyone to know what kind of son we raised. David's face shifted from concern to confusion. Sarah's eyes narrowed. You see, I continued, standing straighter. I forgot to tell David something. 3 weeks ago, the security camera he thought was broken got fixed. And that camera saw everything. The blood drained from both their faces. David grabbed for the microphone, but I pulled it away. David, Sarah, or should I say Sandra Fletcher, you're right. It's time for the truth. Dad's confused, David announced loudly. He's been having episodes. The only episode was yours, son. 3 weeks of footage showing you planning my murder. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Robert pushed forward, fists clenched. Margaret's sister Claire covered her mouth in shock. Someone help him, Sarah called out. He's hallucinating. Am I? I turned to the crowd. Agent Webb, I think it's time. The photographer stepped forward, FBI badge now visible. David Thompson, Sandra Fletcher, you're under arrest for attempted murder, elder abuse fraud, and conspiracy. This is insane, David shouted as more agents materialized. He's sick. Tell them Dr. Harrison. Dr. Harrison's already been interviewed. Detective Morrison announced, badge displayed. He's cooperating fully about the false reports you've been filing. Thomas wheeled out a large screen I'd hidden behind the fountain. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disturbing content, but you need to see who these people really are. The footage played crystal clear on the 70-inch display. David and Sarah discussing poison dosages, laughing about my trusting nature, planning to steal millions while I died. The crowd's shock turned to horror, then rage. You bastard! Robert lunged for David but was held back by agents. Grace is the best man I know. Margaret's church choir ladies surrounded Sarah, preventing escape, while hurling Bible verses about honoring thy father. My construction crews formed a protective circle around me, ready to demolish anyone who approached. Mr. Thompson. Agent Webb continued loudly, ensuring everyone heard. We've documented 17 instances of poisoning, 43 forged documents, and theft exceeding $2 million. Your son and Ms. Fletcher will spend decades in federal prison. David's mask finally shattered completely. You were supposed to die, he screamed at me. Do you know how long I've waited? How much I've hated watching you waste Mom's money on charity while I struggled? I stepped closer, my voice carrying without the microphone. You drove a Mercedes I bought, lived in my house rent-free, stole from clients who trusted you. I deserved more. I'm your son. No. My son died somewhere along the way. You're just a stranger who looks like him. Sarah pulled a syringe from her purse, desperation overcoming caution. You ruined everything. She lunged at me, but Margaret's choir had her surrounded. 70-year-old Ethel Baker, all 5 feet of righteous fury, knocked the syringe away with her hymnal. Not today, Satan! Both David and Sarah were handcuffed while the crowd applauded. Some cried, processing the betrayal. Others shouted support for me. The news crews Thomas had quietly alerted filmed everything, ensuring the story would spread beyond Columbus. As they were led to separate squad cars, David made one last attempt. "Dad, please, I'm still your son." I looked at him, this stranger wearing my boy's face, and felt nothing. The love had been poisoned more thoroughly than any pill could manage. "My son would never try to murder me. Whoever you are, you're no family of mine." The cars pulled away, taking David and Sandra to separate processing facilities. They'd never see each other again, their Costa Rica dreams replaced by federal concrete and steel bars. I turned back to the crowd, exhausted but victorious. "I'm sorry you had to witness this. Margaret deserved better than having her memorial tainted by their evil." Grace Thompson. Claire stepped forward, Margaret's strength in her voice. "My sister would be proud of how you handled this. You saved yourself and probably future victims." One by one, people approached. Hugs from neighbors, handshakes from former employees, tears from those who'd known David as a child. The memorial became something else, a celebration of survival and justice. "How you feeling, Grace?" Robert asked, studying me carefully. "Those pills? Already got medical help lined up. I'll be fine." Dr. Peterson had arrived with the real ambulance, ready to treat any lingering effects. But I felt stronger than I had in months. The weight of secrets finally lifted. As the crowd slowly dispersed, sharing their shock and support, I stood alone by Margaret's fountain. The dedication had certainly been memorable, just not how anyone expected. "Well, honey," I whispered to her photo, "I promised to make them pay. David's facing 30 years minimum, Sarah probably life. Your garden's still beautiful, even after all that ugliness." Wind chimed through the roses, and I chose to hear her answer, "You did good, Grace. Now live." The silent wolf had howled. The trap had sprung. And in a garden meant for grief, justice had bloomed instead. The weeks following the dedication became a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention, and revelations that shook Columbus's financial community. David and Sarah were held without bail, deemed flight risks, with their Costa Rica accounts frozen by federal authorities. I spent the first days after their arrest at St. Catherine's Medical Center, where Dr. Peterson supervised my detox from months of digoxin poisoning. The damage was reversible, but only because we'd caught it in time. 6 more weeks at those doses, he explained, reviewing my charts, and you'd have suffered permanent heart damage. Your son knew exactly what he was doing. Local news picked up the story immediately. Financial advisor and wife plot to murder father at memorial service led every broadcast. National outlets followed when Sarah's multi-state victim list emerged. My phone rang constantly with interview requests. I declined, wanting only peace to process the betrayal. Thomas Brennan visited daily, updating me on the investigation's expanding scope. Sandra Fletcher's been at this since 2015. We've identified 4 elderly victims across state lines. Harold Brenneman and George Fletcher died under suspicious circumstances. William Nash barely survived. You're the only one who caught her. Because of a broken camera and my lousy memory. Because you stayed alert despite trusting them. That's what makes this case exceptional. The FBI's investigation into David's embezzlement uncovered 17 victims' retirees who trusted him with their life savings. Most were recovered from the frozen offshore accounts, but the betrayal cut deep. Mrs. Chen, an 80-year-old widow, wept during her victim impact statement about losing her husband's pension to someone she'd considered family. 3 weeks after the arrest, Michael arranged for me to visit David at Franklin County Jail. I'm not sure why I agreed. Maybe searching for glimpses of the boy I'd raised. Maybe seeking closure Margaret would have wanted. The man in orange jumpsuit bore little resemblance to my son. Jail had stripped away his polished exterior, revealing someone hollow and bitter. We sat across reinforced glass phones, connecting our voices. Come to gloat. His voice carried none of its former warmth. Come to understand. When did you start hating me, David? He laughed, an ugly sound. Hate? I never hated you, Dad. I just loved money more. Was any of it real? The concern, the care after Mom died? Sarah said emotional connections made marks easier to manipulate. You wanted a loving son, so I played one. Each word carved deeper wounds than any poison. Your mother would be devastated. Mom's dead, and she left you everything while I got nothing but expectations and conditional love. We gave you everything. Education, support, love. Love doesn't pay for the lifestyle I deserved. You built an empire, then gave it away to charity while I watched from the sidelines. I studied this stranger, searching for any trace of the child who'd built sandcastles, and asked for bedtime stories. Nothing remained but greed wearing my DNA. The prosecutor offered you a deal. 25 years if you cooperate fully. 25 years because I tried to claim my inheritance early, while Sarah gets life for actually doing the work. Work she poisoned me daily while pretending to care. And you ate it up, literally. He smirked, proud of his wordplay. I stood to leave, finally understanding the truth. Mental illness, childhood trauma. Some explanation for his transformation might have offered comfort. Instead, David was simply evil, choosing money over morality without remorse. Goodbye, David. Don't contact me again. Wait until the trial, he called as I walked away. I'll tell everyone how you emotionally abused me. Favored Mom drove me to desperation. My lawyer says jury sympathy could reduce the sentence. I didn't look back. Let him try. 70 witnesses had seen the truth at Margaret's garden. Sarah's case moved faster. Faced with evidence from multiple states and David's willingness to testify against her for a better deal, she negotiated a plea. Life without parole, avoiding death penalty charges in Arizona, where Harold Brenneman's family demanded justice. During her allocution, Sarah showed the calculated coldness that defined her. No tears, no remorse, just frustration at being caught. Elderly men are easy targets, she told the judge. Lonely, trusting, desperate for female attention. I provided a service. If they died happy, thinking someone loved them, where's the harm? The judge's response was scathing. The harm, Ms. Fletcher, is murder. The harm is families destroyed, savings stolen, trust betrayed. You're a predator who deserves every day of your life sentence. The trial revealed more disturbing details. Sarah had notebooks ranking potential victims, research on untraceable poisons, contact information for other women running similar schemes. She'd turned elder abuse into a business model, recruiting accomplices through dark web forums. David's trial took longer, his lawyer arguing emotional manipulation by Sarah. The strategy collapsed when prosecutors presented evidence of his embezzlement predating their meeting. Email threads showed him researching elderly fraud techniques, seeking someone with Sarah's expertise. They didn't find each other by accident, the prosecutor explained to the jury. David Thompson went hunting for a partner to help murder his father. Sandra Fletcher was his weapon of choice. The jury deliberated 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. David got 35 years for attempted murder, elder abuse, embezzlement, and fraud. The judge called him a disgrace to the concept of family and recommended he serve time in maximum security, given the calculating nature of his crimes. Throughout both trials, I attended every session. Not from vengeance, but as witness for Margaret, for the victims David stole from, for the elderly Sarah murdered. The media painted me as a hero, but I felt only tired and hollow. Support came from unexpected sources. Margaret's church created a fund for elder abuse victims. My construction crews volunteered to install security systems for vulnerable seniors. The poker group started a neighborhood watch program, checking on isolated retirees. Robert proved invaluable, moving temporarily into my guest room despite my protests. You're not going through this alone, Grace. Margaret would haunt me if I let you isolate yourself. Together, we attended support groups for families of criminals. Hearing other parents describe their children's transformations helped slightly. The counselor emphasized that David's choices weren't my fault, but parental guilt doesn't follow logic. 6 months after the dedication, I received a letter from William Nash, Sarah's surviving victim in Nevada. He thanked me for stopping her, shared how she'd destroyed his trust in people, nearly succeeded in killing him before his daughter intervened. "You saved lives, Mr. Thompson," he wrote. "My nightmare was knowing she'd do it again. Because of you, she can't hurt anyone else." I wrote back, and we began corresponding regularly. Two old men, bound by survival, processing betrayal by those we'd trusted. He visited, eventually bringing his daughter, who hugged me like family. "You're the hero who caught the monster," she said through tears. Hero. I'd simply forgotten to mention a camera repair. Heroes don't miss their sons attempting murder in their own homes. Heroes protect people before they're victims, not after. But I smiled and accepted her gratitude, understanding she needed someone to thank for her father's closure. We spent the day in Margaret's garden, sharing stories of the people we'd been before Sarah entered our lives. As autumn approached, David's former clients filed civil suits against his assets, and mine claiming negligence in not stopping him sooner. Michael handled the legal battles, while I focused on making victims whole. Insurance covered most losses, and I supplemented the rest from my accounts. "You don't owe them anything," Michael argued. "David's crimes aren't your responsibility." Maybe not legally, but those people trusted my name. Thompson Construction meant integrity for 40 years. I won't let David destroy that legacy. By year's end, every client had been compensated. The civil suits dropped, replaced by letters thanking me for doing what David should have. Mrs. Chen even brought homemade dumplings, insisting I needed proper nutrition after that woman's poisoning. The house felt different without David and Sarah's presence. Their apartment stood empty, cleaned of evidence and memories. I considered selling, but couldn't abandon Margaret's garden or the community that had surrounded me with support. Instead, I renovated the space into a meeting area for the elder abuse support group. Where David had planned my murder, survivors now gathered to share stories and strategies. The transformation felt appropriate, darkness replaced by hope. One evening, while preparing for a support meeting, I found David's childhood photos tucked behind old tax returns. Birthday parties, Little League games, Christmas mornings. The boy in those pictures bore no resemblance to the man in prison, yet they shared the same face. I kept one photo, David at age 5, helping me build a birdhouse, his face bright with concentration and joy. That was the son I'd mourned, the child who'd existed before greed consumed him. The rest went into the fireplace, watching decades of false memories turn to ash. Sarah had been wrong about one thing. I hadn't eaten up her fake affection out of desperation. I'd believed it, because I'd wanted to see Margaret's kindness and her David's love genuine, despite evidence suggesting otherwise. My trust wasn't weakness, but optimism that family meant something. Now I knew better. Family was Robert checking on me daily, Claire calling every Sunday, former employees visiting with grandchildren who called me Uncle Grace. Family was chosen through loyalty, not assigned by DNA. The memorial garden bloomed through autumn, Margaret's roses defying seasonal expectations. Neighbors often found me there, talking to her photo as if she could respond. Maybe she could. Maybe that's why the camera broke during that specific storm, why I forgot to mention its repair, why every small accident led to David's downfall. "You always were smarter than me," I told her picture one October evening. "Guess you're still protecting me, even from beyond." Wind rustled through dying leaves, and I heard her laugh in the sound. Not everything was lost. Love remained, just redirected toward those who deserved it. David and Sarah had taken much, but not everything. Not even close. 2 years have passed since that Memorial Day, when my world shattered and reformed in Margaret's garden. The seasons cycled through each one, bringing new growth to both the plants and my life. Today, I woke to frost on the windows and coffee brewing in a kitchen that finally feels peaceful again. The trials ended with satisfying finality. David serves his 35 years at Marion Correctional, a maximum security facility 3 hours north. He wrote once, 6 months into his sentence, begging for commissary money. I sent the letter back unopened. Sarah disappeared into the federal system, her life sentence ensuring she'll never poison another trusting soul. Sometimes justice arrives exactly as deserved. The financial recoveries exceeded expectations. FBI forensics traced nearly all the stolen funds, returning 93% to David's victims. The remainder I covered personally, adding interest for their suffering. Mrs. Chen sends cookies monthly, her way of ensuring I'm eating properly. Someone needs to feed you good food after that terrible woman, she insists. Thompson Construction's reputation survived because of how we handled the aftermath. My former employees spread word about the restitutions, the support groups, the security systems we installed free for vulnerable seniors. Business for the new owners actually increased, people wanting to support a company that stood behind its name, even in retirement. The Elder Abuse Support Group flourishes in what was David's apartment. Every Thursday, 15 to 20 survivors gather to share stories, resources, and hope. We installed a commercial kitchen where Margaret's church friends teach cooking classes, ensuring isolated seniors learn both nutrition and community. Where Sarah ground poison into pills, grandmothers now teach grandchildren family recipes. William Nash visited again last month, bringing news that changed everything. His daughter Emma, the one who'd saved his life by noticing Sarah's scheme, had started a non-profit called Golden Years Guardian. They verify home healthcare workers, investigate suspicious family members, and provide free security consultations for at-risk seniors. We need someone with experience to head our Midwest division, William explained over dinner. Someone who understands both the schemes and the victims. Someone trusted in the community. At 70, I'd assumed my working days were over. But this felt different, like Margaret nudging me toward purpose beyond survival. I accepted, and now spend 3 days a week helping families protect their vulnerable members. Every senior saved from abuse feels like balance restored. The memorial garden has become something unexpected. What began as private grief transformed into a community sanctuary. The city officially designated it as Grace Memorial Garden. They insisted on using my name, despite my protests open to anyone seeking peace. Margaret would laugh at the irony, her introverted husband becoming a public figure. Weddings happen there now. Young couples beginning their lives where David tried ending mine. Last spring, Jennifer from the bank married her longtime partner beneath the rose arbor. This place represents survival and truth, she explained. What better foundation for marriage? Children from the neighborhood school visit each fall, planting bulbs for spring while learning about Margaret's favorite flowers. Their teacher, Mrs. Patterson, lost her father to elder abuse 5 years ago. She brings students here to understand how communities protect each other. Mr. Grace, one 8-year-old asked last visit, "Why did your son try to hurt you?" "Sometimes people choose money over love," I explained gently. "But look around. See all these flowers. They represent all the people who choose love instead." The boy nodded solemnly, then planted his tulip bulb with extra care. Children understand truth when presented simply. They haven't learned to complicate it with excuses and rationalizations. Robert still joins me for poker. Thursday nights, though half our group has passed on. New members joined, including Detective Morrison, who retired but stays active in elder protection. She wins too often for honest luck, but nobody complains. She earned those pots through years of catching predators. "Grace, you dating yet?" Robert asked last week, his subtlety non-existent as always. "Who'd want a 70-year-old man with trust issues and a poisonous son?" "Helen Morgan seems interested. Brings you pie every Sunday." Helen. Margaret's friend from book club, who'd lost her husband the same year. She did bring pie, regularly stayed for coffee, laughed at my terrible jokes. But opening my heart felt dangerous after David and Sarah's betrayal. "Margaret would want you happy," Robert pressed, "not imprisoned by what they did." He was right. Margaret believed in second chances, fresh starts, love, conquering fear. So I asked Helen to dinner last week. We talked until midnight about Book's loss, and the strange liberation of surviving what should have killed us. She kissed my cheek goodnight, and I felt 17 again. "I know about David," she said softly. "Everyone does. But Grace, you're not him. You're the man who caught him. There's a difference. We're taking it slow, two people with enough life experience to know rushing leads nowhere good. But possibility exists where only grief lived before. Margaret would approve, probably claim credit for divine matchmaking. The foundation I established in Margaret's name has distributed over $1 million to elder abuse prevention and victim support. We fund security systems, legal aid, and counseling services. David thought he'd steal that money for Costa Rica beaches. Instead, it protects the vulnerable from others like him. Speaking of David, I received notice last month that he'd been placed in solitary after attempting to run a fraud scheme within the prison. He'd convinced other inmates to invest commissary funds in a fake business opportunity. Even behind bars, he couldn't stop stealing. The apple had rotted so thoroughly that no trace of fruit remained. His lawyer contacted me about testifying at a parole hearing in 23 years. I marked my calendar simply, no. If I'm still alive at 91, I'll ensure the board knows exactly why David Thompson should serve every day of his sentence. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness, only containment. The strangest redemption came from Sarah's past victims. Harold Brenneman's daughter flew in from Phoenix last year, needing to see where Sarah was finally caught. We walked through the garden while she cried, thanking me for what she called closure. "Dad died thinking she loved him," she said. "At least you knew the truth in time." We planted a tree together in the garden's corner, a desert willow that shouldn't thrive in Ohio, but does. Nature adapts, finds ways to bloom, despite inhospitable conditions. Much like those of us Sarah left behind. My days now follow new patterns. Mornings at Golden Years Guardian reviewing cases, and training staff to recognize elder abuse signs. Afternoons in the workshop building memory boxes for support group members. Evenings often with Helen discovering that life after 70 can still surprise. The house no longer echoes with emptiness. It hosts Sunday dinners for chosen family support meetings, for survivors' birthday parties, for neighborhood children who call me Grandpa Grace. Where David and Sarah plotted murder, love now lives abundantly. Sometimes late at night, I stand in Margaret's garden and marvel at the journey. A broken camera, forgotten information, 10 minutes of footage that saved my life, and exposed a multi-state criminal enterprise. The smallest oversights creating the largest changes. "Thank you, honey," I whisper to stars that might carry messages. For the garden, the broken camera, the strength to survive. For teaching me that family isn't blood, but choice. The fountain whispers back with water over stone, and I hear Margaret's answer. "You were always stronger than you knew. Now live like you believe it." So I do. Every morning brings new purpose, every evening, deeper gratitude. David stole years of trust, but gave me decades of clarity about what matters. Sarah's poison strengthened my immunity to deception. They meant to destroy, but accidentally created someone unbreakable. My story spreads through senior communities as both warning and hope. Yes, predators exist, sometimes wearing familiar faces. But communities can protect each other. Love proves stronger than greed. Truth eventually surfaces, even if it takes a forgotten camera repair to reveal it. To those reading this wondering if their own family members might harbor dark intentions, trust your instincts. That chest pain might not be age. That new medication might need verification. That suddenly attentive relative might have motives beyond love. Better paranoid and alive than trusting and buried. But don't let fear poison your ability to connect. For every David and Sarah, there are hundreds of Roberts and Helen's genuine souls offering real support. The trick is learning the difference, and sometimes that takes a broken camera and divine timing to reveal. Margaret's garden blooms year-round, now greenhouse additions ensuring constant growth. Like the plants, I've learned to thrive in all seasons. What began as a memorial to death became a celebration of life. Where Sarah served poisoned children, now plant hope. Where David signed fraudulent papers, couples exchange genuine vows. That's the ultimate revenge against those who tried to destroy me. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just exposing their crimes, but building something beautiful from the wreckage. Every flower that blooms, every senior, protected every survivor who finds hope, stands as testimony that love defeats greed. David wanted my money. Sarah wanted my death. Instead, they gave me purpose, clarity, and a mission that will outlive us all. Sometimes the worst things that happen become foundations for the best things possible. The silent wolf hasn't just survived, he's learned to sing. What would you do if you discovered family members were plotting against you? Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more. Consider sharing with anyone who might need to hear that survival and justice are possible even from the deepest betrayals. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, trust your instincts, protect yourself, but never stop believing in the power of genuine love and community. Stay safe, stay aware, and may your own gardens bloom with truth and peace.